So I'm going to start with Ankit, who's in the news for various things, but this time we're going to talk about unit economics and what makes sense for a QSR when it comes to a mall, and what is the kind of, as you were saying, there is a kind of hump that you go through before which, the momentum begins. So what do you think in your business is the kind of level after which your momentum carries forward?
Hi guys, good evening everyone, and I think thanks for sitting and being patient. So I run a brand called the Belgian Waffle Co. Very honestly, the idea behind any format that you start with is about how do you marry your product, your target audience, the price points at which you will sell, and then determine what is the format in which you're going to sell. So it is very, very important in the initial days of any brand to actually marry all of these. Like when we started the Belgian Waffle Co., we were very clear about who's the target audience we are going to speak to. And we were clear that, our product is something probably which will connect with a younger audience. Basis that, we identified what's the likely propensity for the younger audience to spend, which probably gave us an indication of what's the kind of price points at which we can sell our product. And then basically we also worked on our product, on our food cost, and meticulously planned each aspect of the business, right from the store format, to the back of the house operations, to, what is our unit economics on a food level, what gross margins we would like to operate at. And so I think it's very, very important for these basics for any brand to get right. And I would say the sooner you do that, the better it is, because, scaling just compounds the problem when you've not really found, your basics and done them right. So in our initial journey for the first 2.5 years, we actually spent a lot of time perfecting all of these aspects. Right from, our food costs to, what should be our target food costs, to what should be the likely selling price of the product. Basis that, we determined what should be the store format, what should be the ideal size, what's the kind of capex we can incur. Because concepts like return on investment, payback periods, these are the things that we honestly really focused on right from our initial days. And I would say that once you get that right is when you can probably look at, going through the hump, which Bikramjit just mentioned, and then think about scaling rapidly.
Thank you. Dheeraj, we're going to discuss the F word with you, your favorite F word, which is franchising as far as your business is concerned. I know you have a college senior sitting here, but let's not get into that. But tell me a little bit why you think that is the way forward for expansion of business and what makes sense, because there are enough people who've burnt their fingers when it comes to franchising.
Yeah, hi everyone. I represent Jumbo King Burgers now. And I think franchising as a concept, it's franchising versus company-owned is a very hotly debated topic, right? And we are a 100% franchise brand. We have 0 company-owned stores, and we do that by choice. And so whenever I go, I make this annual trip to the US, which is the mecca of QSRs, right? And they have this mega conference around QSRs to see what's happening over there. And every year that I go back, what I see is more and more brands are franchising. People who are company-owned stores are beginning to franchise. And it is not because those companies are not making money, or they don't have capital, or they don't have access to manpower and don't know how to run their stores. However, 9 out of 10 operators are in the franchising business over there. Of course, it may also be true that it's a franchising conference, so everyone over there is a franchise. Maybe I'm having a confirmation bias there. However, very successful brands, and I think 2-3 things which we focused on learning from there was, of course, Ankit mentioned a lot of things about the unit economics. We have to get that right first. Second is, we charge a 10% royalty to our franchisees on the sales. We said we have to ensure that we add at least 20% value to him, and that is why he continues to stay with us. So the value proposition has to be way, way higher in terms of the, and we also ensure that we tell our franchisees that this is the value we are adding to you. Earlier, we were thinking that people would know what is happening, but we realized that you have to communicate that this is the difference that we are making. And I think, and then providing the entire ecosystem for The third part is selecting the right franchisees. So we, get a lot of people, we say you have to be full-time operators. Everyone says that, yes, we will do that. And out of 10 people that we were working with, we found that 8 would come in, and then they would have either their wife or their brother or their cousin or a manager come and run the store while they would do something else. So we came up with this policy that we will not give a second store to anyone who's not demonstrating his commitment on the first store. I think that one single move changed everything for us. We were able to separate out the non-operators from the operators and grow only with franchise partners, because we are trying to get a business owner to run the store, right? And if that franchisee is going to keep a manager, then it is the same problem getting created. We are trying to replace the manager with a business owner, and the business owner, which is our franchisee, keeps a manager there. So then the problem did not get solved. So I think these things, I can keep on talking on franchising. It's my favorite subject. I tell people that build a concept which is very easy to franchise, easy to control, and I don't see any reason why, we have fantastic return on capital employed. We can grow very fast. We can grow geographically, in very diverse markets. So we love this business model. Yeah.
Radhika, you've co-founded, you are a big digital personality, and you've co-founded a coffee brand. So tell me, from a consumer lens, what makes a coffee brand truly stand out today? Is it price, is it speed, or is it the strong brand personality?
Firstly, I'd just like to say I'm Radhika Seth, and I'm a co-founder at Naked Coffee. We are a newly launched brand. It's been about 6 months, so I'm a little baby in the F&B industry as of now, as compared to the people here who've been in this industry for so long, and I really look up to. Secondly, to come to your question, I think that when it comes to a brand, things like price point or speed are just their entry-level expectations. That's not a differentiator. At the end of the day, what really makes any brand stand out is having a strong brand personality. We all have access to tools like ChatGPT and AI and this and that. So I feel like what ends up happening is when a brand is in a development stage and they're getting to do the branding, they're just typing in these keywords that are trending at the moment, whether it's, there was an entire trend that happened of brands being super minimal or brands being super retro or whatever was trending at the moment, and completely fraying from their brand personality or their brand messaging. So I think having that unique brand identity is what will, at the end of the day, really set your brand apart more than anything else. You can have the most aesthetic-looking cafe. You can have the most, I don't even know what to say. Like, you can have everything in place, but if your brand is just all over the place, it doesn't have its own tone of voice, its own messaging, then nothing really is going to work.
I have a similar question for both Jasmeet and Sohrab, because they are the ones with the legacy brand. When you're looking at something like unit economics, and when you are your business is as old as it is, does it make sense? That is the first part. Secondly, there has to be a break at some point where you're looking at, first you're leading consumer tastes, because everyone knows that you are the ones who are setting the flavors. At what point do you then try and change the nature of the business that you have inherited?
That's 2 questions. So I'm privileged, isn't it? All right, good evening, all of you all. I'm Jasmit Tibb. I'm blessed to be the son of the man who invented the word Frankie. And first of all, thank you to everybody in this room and everybody who's been eating Frankies for the last 54 years. So, yeah, you asked me about unit economics, right? See, business is business. You evolve as you grow. You get professionals to work with you and who take care of the bottom line. For us, unit economics comes secondary. What comes first is satiating our consumer. Because we've never had customers, we've had guests. I've had families who've been eating a Frankie, the grandfather getting the father to the son, and now the grandson. So yeah, we've grown, we've got technology in to get our unit economics right. We've got formulas, we've got algos which tell us that, this flavor is going to have this bottom line. So we are working on the unit economics, but that's not our priority. It just happens. I'm sorry I'm being boisterous, but for us it just happens. Because we have focused only on one thing, which is quality. In getting quality, we have worked very hard to get the right sourcing. Now, sustainability is becoming a big thing in our chain. So that also helps us, and with India developing, the technologies are so easily available, and they're so fast, that if you're smart enough to grow fast, it's about economies of scale. It's about optimizing your resources, and unit economics comes. Coming second question of yours, may I go to the second? The second question of yours was, we are being the trendsetters. At one point, do we realize there needs a change? You know, it's a very filmy dialogue, but I heard Amit ji say it once, that purana dialogue hai, but hit raha hai. Ki mere paas, aapke paas kya hai, mere paas maa hai. So certain things work well over the years. Like if you see, you know, a sweet lassi, you don't have to change that. You have to evolve the packing. It's the same way with Tibbs Frankie. I mean, my classics don't change. I have, I think, 34 flavors. We have biryanis, we've got fries, we've got sandwiches. We are snackatarians in south of India. But every time I go out, and like I was walking here and this lovely lady, she told me that first thing she did when she landed in Mumbai was have a Frankie. So we have to stick to our classics. We have to evolve the packaging. And the new flavors, yes, is obviously Gen Z coming up. We've just launched something which are 20 grams of protein, which is called a Proti Roti. We were the first Indian QSR to put plant-based protein in a wrap. So evolution has to happen, but keeping the classics in mind.
Sohrab, same question. Being a legacy brand, and you guys have also, since 2015, gone in a slightly different direction and expanded. How difficult was that process, and where do you think it was heart and where do you think it was head?
Okay, when it comes to the legacy brand, yeah, I think legacy brands have it a little more difficult, though people say it's quite easy. But the problem is that in the legacy brand, there's certain baggage. For example, if people did not like your legacy brand earlier, it's harder to actually ensure that it's well liked by others. So it's quite a challenge. I would any day prefer starting afresh and then doing a new brand rather than a legacy brand. It's one of the hardest things to do. Having said that, like your question, I won't get into the P&L much because I think everybody's answered. It's pretty much the same answers here. Great standards, low food cost, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's simple. I would say that you've got to be very true to the target customer that you have. And the food, while you should press on the quality, but the quality should be the one that's appreciated by the target market. For example, serving 5-star food, for example, in a QSR doesn't make sense because that's not the audience. So you've got to be true to the quality of the food which the audience likes. Otherwise, there's no point. You're just wasting your money. And really, it doesn't make sense to do a QSR. That's one. Keventers, yes, you know, it started with as a premium brand because the idea was to really, because in India, the way it moves is the aspirational circle is there. And then as and when you progress, you tend to become a little more mass premium. And then you go into the masses. So that's the route that we followed. And it's worked very well for us. Challenges were there because, you know, once the team is there, it's a large team, bureaucracy sets in. It's not easy to, you know, tell everybody how we're going. So you've got to be a little more, I would say, dictatorship, a little more hard task oriented. And then that's the way to do it, yeah. So I would say that get into the premium segment first. And then if you want to go across India, like today, we have about 400 plus outlets, 91 cities, we're also in Dubai, etc. It's important to cater to the masses, and that's what we've done here. So shift's been a little difficult, not too difficult.
Murtaza, you're on the other side of the equation because you represent the builder, the malls. So how is your curation take place? How do you know what fits and what doesn't when you're choosing brands or going and approaching customers?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Murtaza. I represent Outlet Mall of India. Extremely privileged to be sitting in this panel with some of the legendary brands that we've all grown up having. And that being said, I mean, this is it's one of the most important things to answer your questions, that we always look at a certain reason to travel to something. It's a very instinctive decision that one takes to feel something and then want to travel or go to a place and have a Keventers or a Tibbs Frankie, or it has to be a very strong reason. And one of the strongest reason is the instinct of wanting the previous taste to visit that again. I think our curation works in the similar fashion, is to make sure that a larger group of audiences feel the same thing, and it's a good enough reason for them to travel to achieve these brands. So number one is, what should the curation be which makes people travel? The second and the most important reason is versatility. If we don't have a versatile curation, which means a little bit for everyone, that does not serve a great curation. In fact, with us being the first in Maharashtra and the largest curation in India, F&B actually plays a very vital role in the outlet mall of India. 40% of our curation is F&B. So from restaurants to QSRs to shaping up food trucks with new age brands, we've always tried to position even the food right at the front of it. And most malls, especially on highways and in far off places, any of their statistics put together will tell that F&B does far greater than retail in most malls. And that's one of the reasons why our utmost attention has gone to give everyone something new. With a Tibbs or a Belgian or Keventers, and even for a Jumbo for that matter, there's a little bit of a price point differentiation that everyone also gives and adds value here. While I would be able to get a shake from Keventers, which is one part of my meal, my vada pav or burger has to be like from a Jumbo, right? And my waffle, my dessert needs to be from there, or a Tibbs roll needs to be from Tibbs. So these Tibbs Frankie, sorry, my bad. So these kind of curations of versatility and price points put an entire family's meal on the table, and I think that's what we're looking for.
Ankit, I have a question that has been going on in my head for a long time, and you're looking at QSR brands which have hundreds of outlets, and they continue growing at a vast pace. What was the challenge when you were right at the beginning, when you were doing 10, 15, 20, and what is the challenge now, and how do you overcome it, and how do you keep the pace up?
Look, when we started the brand 10 years back, the biggest challenge was ye product chalega ki nahi, because India didn't know that there's a market for waffles that exist. And so we were being extremely measured in the way we would go about scaling and growing, because in retail, it's, with franchising and things like that, it's very easy to scale. But if the brand doesn't work, then once you scale down, the brand normally gets a bad name and ill repute, and then, you lose all the brand credibility. So in our initial days, we were very measured in what we used to do, how we would do it in terms of our rollouts especially. Having said that, having started the entire waffle revolution in the country, we were always quick in terms of our rollouts. Today we are at 725 outlets. Over the last 6 years, we've continued to add 120 outlets every year. We continue the same pace because we feel that which other country is going to give you 1.4 billion people to feed. And gradually, as more and more people get educated about waffles, and waffles becomes more and more mainstay as a dessert, our confidence in further growth only increases from here on. So in our initial days, some of the key learnings have been what works for the brand, what doesn't work for the brand. And I think this is something which is very, very important for everyone to keep in mind, especially looking to their products. So for example, we've never done highways because we always knew that, our product is something which is not a meal. And typically when people are traveling on highways, they will normally want to stop for a meal which is more functional. majority of our sales happen after 7 p.m. at night. And so, I mean, we've always tried to house ourselves around brands which are, which drive footfalls. Because typically when you're catering to the impulse category, location plays a very important role in terms of, where you would want to house yourselves. So these have been some of the learnings that have come along the way, of what not to do. Like highways is a clear no-go. We normally don't try to, we are not a destination outlet, so we'll not try to be probably at the end of a particular market, hoping that, everyone comes and walks to us comes to our store. We normally like to be either at the start of a market or at the center of a market, so as to ensure that we are in and around where majority of the footfalls are. So for any brand which really wants to scale, understanding your target audience, understanding your occasions of consumption, and then determining which is the best places where you can house yourself is very, very important. And especially if you're a QSR or a fast food chain, it's very, very important to keep location in mind, because if you get your location right, 60 or 70% of the battle is just won there. So that's what has been the learning over the years, where we've learned where not to open, where to open, and even within a particular market, which is the best location probably for us to attract. So these have been some of the key learnings that have come to us. And today we are present in 230 plus cities. So we've understood one thing, that chocolates and sweets sell across the length and breadth of the country. And India's appetite for sweets is amazing. India's appetite for chocolates is amazing. So anyone who thinks about running a chocolate business or a sweets business, you are in a safe place, because you will have many mouths to feed.
Also, if you're a pharmacist, because we are the diabetic capital of the world.
Sorry?
We are the diabetic capital of the world, thanks to the sweets and the chocolates. Dheeraj, I wanted to ask you, as a franchise-only business, what are the parts of your kind of structure where you have to pay extra care and attention to, which make you a successful business, compared to someone who also runs their own outlets? Like, I remember we were having a conversation about supply chain and, going on thing. So things like that, what are the elements which you think you, especially being a QSR which is franchise-owned, need to concentrate on?
So, yeah, hi. I think how I would answer that question is, so like we have 5 departments, right? So like there's the marketing department, which is actually kind of what we call as the department which adds energy to the entire system. So we're now investing very heavily in a loyalty program with the marketing team. And then the online sales and how to optimize for online sales and increase that. And so then, all the social media activations, etc., which are done. So we have to get all of these pieces right in the marketing department. And that is what keeps the franchisees always wanting to be associated with the brand, because he knows that at the brand level, we may be spending 5 crores annually, 10 crores annually to do the marketing, while the franchisee as an individual will not be able to do that. So he always benefits by being a part of the system. Then we have, I think we've invested very heavily in something called the JK University, the Jumbo King University, where all the training videos are digitized. The entire stack. There are like over 200 plus videos and PDFs in multiple languages. So the franchisee sees that as a tool to train his staff members. We have a lot of attrition in the QSR business. So they are able to quickly train their people. So, that is something which helps us add value to the franchisees. Then the supply chain is a very, very big part, right? So we have to ensure that the bread, the sauce, and the patty, and the packing material, these are 4 categories. In each of these, we tell our franchisees that, and we encourage them to go and buy it themselves. And we keep benchmarking that the price that they get by buying from the centralized purchase system, which is through us, there should be a 15 to 20% differential than if he were to try to do it on his own. So then there's the entire IT department, which provides the POS, the food cost, and the product mix reports, and so many things for the franchisee to be able to run his business efficiently. And then we have the projects team, which does the initial, designing of the store. So you'll see that our focus is that each of the departments has to continuously add that 10% value to the franchisee every day, every month, so that the 10% royalty that we charge, he's like, boss, please, a royalty badhana mat. We are very happy paying this to you. We are going to continue paying this to you. So the value add has to be massive, and that is where our focus lies.
Radhika, I'm going to ask you something akin to loyalty. And because you are in the digital space as well, what do you think keeps customers loyal and coming back? Because that's a huge challenge for any new brand. People will come, have once, and they'll say there's enough choice. So what is it that you think makes the difference?
I always say that your marketing and your packaging are the #1 reason why someone would want to try your product for the first time. But at the end of the day, it's your product quality and the experience that your brand delivers why customers will ever come back to you. If your brand can instill an emotion into people, if it can give them a great experience, if your product quality is top-notch, your customers are going to keep coming back to you. If you don't have it, then it's just a one-time purchase where they're just going to look at a pretty product, put it in their house, and that's that. They're never going to use it again. So yeah, I think like nailing your product quality is literally the #1 thing.
Jasmit, I want to ask you a question, again, going with the nature of your business and the old business. The fact is that with businesses which are legacy in our country, we are also geographically bound in one area. How do you overcome that when you expand? What is it that you had to do? Because you have a captive audience where you are. You may not even need to, I mean, I can give you an example of a brand like, say, Empire in Bangalore. All their stores are in Bangalore. Maybe one is on the highway to Mysore. That's it. And they seem happy with it. So how do you reach out, and is your brand continue to be same, or do you pander to the new customer as well?
To be honest, I don't think it was very tough for us. Because it is, see, India has expanded. IT has come into this play. You know, logistics play a very big part into the way we can transport stuff. Also, let me tell you a surprising fact. My largest number of stores after Mumbai is Hyderabad. I mean, it's a biryani eating state for all you can. That is a perception. And that's why we were hesitant when we got a chance to launch Hyderabad. My first franchise was Chennai. I mean, let me tell you a funny instance. My dad landed, God bless his soul now, he landed into Chennai and he said, in Punjabi, tu bevkoof hai, tu ethe launch karega. And I said, theek hai dad, main bevkoof hai, let's go with it. And he went with it. I kid you not, I'm talking 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we launched Chennai, and the first day we sold out. Because half of Mumbai was there. So it's not very difficult. Like she rightly said, and Dheeraj said, and Ankit said, if you're able to know your product, if you're able to know your audience, if you're able to know your guests, if you're able to cater to them, like somebody having a Tibbs Frankie in Mumbai, if he goes to Chennai, he has to have the same Tibbs Frankie. If he goes to Delhi, he's having the same. He's going to Goa, he's having one. So we are spread across country. Forget India. When we launched Dubai, we had people with tears, we had people with nostalgia, we had people with stories coming and telling how they grew up on Frankies and how nostalgic it is. Let me tell you what happens at T2, the arrivals. People land, people who are coming to India after 10 years, 15 years. I mean, the other day, my CEO and me were there at the airport, and I had moist eyes because we had a gentleman who must be in his 70s, who was on wheelchair, who's been pushed, and he came straight to the store. And I asked him, I was there, I said, sir, I work for Tibbs, can I help you? He said, no, can I have the mutton Frankie? And he had that, and he had tears flowing down, and I said, sir, why? And the guy goes, he says, you're Mr. Tibbs' son. I said, yes, I am. I said, how do you know that? He said, because 40 years ago, in Kushrubag, I used to be in India. I'm coming to India after 30 years, and the first thing I see is Tibbs Frankie, and I feel at home. And after he had the first bite, he said, well done, son. Well done that you guys have maintained your quality. So, if you have that kind of word of mouth, in India, I always tell people, never sell a food product from here. Always sell it from here. Because in India, it's always dil se dil ka connection. That's how we are expanding, to be honest.
That was very eloquently put. Sohrab, I want to ask you a question, the same kind of question, but in a different way. When you're looking at new markets and when you're looking at expanding in existing markets, because you've changed the nature of the brand, which is more difficult and what are the challenges in either of them?
As in, when you want to expand to?
Yeah, if you're expanding in absolutely new territory, challenge there is different from when you're expanding, say, in Delhi.
Well, I think the biggest challenge is adapting to the culture that exists. And like, F&B I think today it's a wonderful time to be in the F&B business primarily because you don't really need to be a chef or you don't need to be, you don't have to do your hotel management pretty much thanks to AI. You can do literally anything and anybody can do everything. You can cut down on your corporate team, you can do whatever. I think in today's time, so the biggest challenge has always been when you go to a new place, how do you adapt yourself and how do you, I can give you an example. For example, when we, a couple of places when we launch, when we're going to Dubai, for example, you know that everybody in Dubai is extremely proud of the Dubai skyline that exists. So what we did is we celebrated that. We took the bottle because we had the glass bottles and we put forth the Dubai skyline. And believe you me, it was a runaway success. People just loved it. Same thing when we went to Kenya. A lot of people go to Kenya, for example, for to see the wildlife, the animals. So the big five, we put the big five on the bottle, and again it was fab. So the idea is when you go, you can do simple things, but you've got to adapt to the culture first. So once you do that, once you're inside there, then sky is the limit. You could do anything. So I would highly urge everyone, when you're doing or going to a new place and you don't know much about it, imbibe the culture, get some historical facts, try to, and that's the way. And that's always worked for us.
Murtaza, my question for you is about the 40% of F&B that you say you have in the mall. How much of it is QSR and what is the logic behind that equation?
Sure. So between QSR to new age brands to restaurants and large format restaurants, I think this is how we've split it. QSR holds easily 50% of our entire curation. I think, I'll tell you the reason behind it. It's also because I think operations and logistics is one of the major issues that most brands face, especially in the F&B space, in order to ensure the best quality, make sure that it's repeated at the same level every single time, and SOPs really make a big difference, especially with QSR. So our focus was the same thing, that while people come and travel from different parts of the city, they should see the same brands and enjoy what they're actually traveling for. So 50% is that. The other 10% would be us vouching for new age brands. Like Naked is a good example for new age brands performing really well in the market and making sure that there's something new to give for our audience as well. The other 40% is split between new age small restaurants and large format restaurants, because large format restaurants like a Socials or a BSC or Lord of the Drinks is something that's a big miss in especially other sides of Bombay, which is untapped. So that is one big curation differentiation that we've kept.
There is one question. This is the first and last question because we've had 2 buzzers already. Flight nikal jayegi.
Just one question, like if today capital is not a constraint, like for people like Dheeraj, for Belgian Waffle, who franchised extensively. So the question is, now QSR has abundant availability of capital, which was not the case. I remember in 2018, I used to go around for Theobroma looking for capital, and they were arguing that, is it such a scalable model and all that. So today capital is not a constraint. And given that, if you were to start again today, would you really go through the pain of franchising in a FOFO model, or would you just say, boss, chodo sab kuch, just Coco?
It's a long question. Short answer will be,
Please, not
we
a
have
one-word
always
answer.
had access to capital. We franchise because we feel it's a stronger business model. We don't franchise because capital was not available 20 years ago and it's become available now. So as a business model, once you understand the DNA, then you'll get the answers.
And then we can take this off the stage. And thank you, everyone, for this wonderful session. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really hungry after speaking to all you guys.